We are now live streaming. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the industry. I am very excited. We have an awesome show for you today. We have a great conversation for you today. Today, I'm bringing on a guest, and I'll get to that in a second. But before we get into all the fun stuff, I just want to say hello. And if you're here with us live inside the Facebook group, if I could talk, that would be amazing. Let me know in the comments if you're hanging out. Tell me how you're feeling. If you are new to the It's Exogenji Facebook community, welcome. We had quite a few new people join this week because I did a random free live and exciting training today or this week. And so a lot of you recently joined if you participated in that or you watched the replay. Every Friday, I do a live show right here at 10 a.m. Some episodes we bring on guests, sometimes they're clients, sometimes they're friends, peers, people in the industry who I just think are amazing. Some episodes it's just me and I'm riffing on certain things, Q&A kind of style. Today is going to be a guest. We also repurpose everything on the live show on our YouTube channel and on the Stephanie Ann Houston podcast. So if you want to listen in other spaces, those are the spaces to listen on. I'm trying to think what else I have to say. If you guys are regular viewers, you might be noticing that the last couple of weeks we've been doing the show a little bit differently. So sometimes we do the show and Jake, I refer to Jake a lot. Like Jake, sometimes Jake comes to my house and we have a fancier setup and it's a vibe. We've been playing back and forth with different setups and I find that it's a better conversation, a better vibe when we have guests, that it's done like this on Zoom. So we just like to keep things interesting and we like to switch it up and feedback is always appreciated. So anything else that I have to say before we get into the conversation? I don't think. The industry is one of the things that I'm just like, I just want to get into the conversation. Like no one cares about the boring stuff. So I'm just going to bring up the Facebook on my phone and turn down the volume. So this is the context for today's show, you guys. I have Leanne with me, and I'll give Leanne a minute to introduce herself, but I'm going to share my context first. And if you guys follow the show, I've been talking about Leanne for the last couple of weeks, like a little bit. Leanne is someone who the few weeks ago, it feels like a lifetime ago, she flew to Canada for the first time ever. And we had a VIP weekend in Toronto and we thought it would be so fun and so amazing to bring on Leanne because we love her and I want you to meet her and get to learn from her. But I wanted to share a little bit of like her side of the story during the VIP weekend and the whole thought process and all of the things. So I'm actually going to start, and I'm going to start with a question, and then I just dive in. I'm like, I don't even want your intro. I don't want your bio.
I love it. I love it.
That's how I am. So Leanne, I want to ask you this right away. You saw one Instagram story slide about an in-person weekend, and from one slide, never have bought from me before, unless that's a mistake. You can clear that up in a second. And you were like, I'm in, sign up, you paid. And like, it just happened like that. I want you to talk about how it feels or what is it like to be someone who does that? Like what? It wasn't like a few story slides. It wasn't like a masterclass. It was a high ticket, travel to a different country, come meet someone you've never learned from before. Like, can you explain your thought process?
Yeah, I love this. I love it because you are right. Not only had I never bought from you before, I'd only recently found you. So it's not like I've been in your world and like consuming your Instagram for 6 months a year. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but I literally had found you. And I remember saying to my husband, like, you know, I love what she's doing, but I also love that she's like having the time of her life whilst doing it. And that for me has always been the whole vibe of having my own business. Like I didn't want to replace a corporate job with a business that I then like had to hustle and hate. Right. So that morning, I remember I woke up, I literally got up and I had a nail appointment. I remember I had a nail appointment first thing in the morning and I literally woke up and I saw one story slide where you were like, you're like the best weekend ever, you and me, a VIP weekend, like the whole weekend together. And that was it. That was all I saw. And I replied to your story and was like, hey, what, like, two questions, like, when do I need to do this by? And then like, just tell me like what's covered, what's not covered type thing. And I remember you were like, eek, yeah, we confirmed. And I was like, okay, yeah, send me the link and I'm in. And for me, it was that full body energy of like everything in me when I saw that story was like, that's exactly what you need. Like, that is what you need. And there was no other moment of needing to like ask anything else. It was like, that will be the shift. That is exactly what you need.
I love this so much. And, you know, it's so interesting because we talk about this a lot in content and in the coaching space of like, exactly this is like when you feel something, follow that feeling and just go. I'm curious, have you always been the type of person that does that? Or has that been like a learned thing to trust yourself to make these kinds of moves?
Yeah. And I love this because let's keep it real. Like, yes and no. Okay. Cause I think yes, in the, I, you know, have always been somebody that leans fully in. And if you would have asked my mom when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going here, I'm doing this, I'm moving to New York. When I was 20, I'm originally from England. And when I was 21, I moved to New York, sold my car and was like, moving to New York for the year. And everyone's like, okay, have you been to New York? Nope, don't need, I know I'm going to love it. It's going to be fine. So yes, I definitely am somebody that follows the pull. And that for me is what it is. I never need to wait to be pushed. And I think that that's a huge part of like being successful in running your own business. But I also am a human being and definitely have moments where like, who do you think you are? What are you doing? Like, even in making that investment with you, of course it was the pull and it was a full body yes, but I also remember sitting getting my nails done, about to pay, like finding my card, being like, please hold, where I could like, let me just pay this link real quick, finding my card, like hoping that the bank doesn't call me to confirm the transaction. And having that feeling of like, you know, a little bit of like, what are you doing? You know, you have a baby, the human experience creeps up, but I trust myself. And when the pull comes, I know that it's the call to follow. So yes, but it's also a skill that I have to keep finding that edge around, because I think that with each level comes finding that new edge and following bigger pulls. It's like smaller pulls, bigger pulls.
I love this so much. And I love right away, like the real talk of it is because I like, we're human. We're going to have that thought of like, shit, am I just going to fuck everything up if I do this? Like, what am I doing? Or like, whatever. But so I think people get stuck there, because I think people think as soon as I have a thought or a doubt or a fear, then don't do it. So then what's the difference then to have that thought? And then what happens after? Is it like, do you have this self-talk of like, like you said, I trust myself? Like, what kind of combats the fear so then you actually follow through? And I think that, and from my experience too, like it comes through experience of doing this over and over again, when you realize, I know the thought isn't true, but then it's almost like another thought comes in to be like, trust is stronger than the fear. So maybe just talking through of like, then after the fear and the doubt, then what is the thing that makes you actually say yes?
Yeah. And I love that, because ultimately that's what courage is, right? And that's like, I always think of you whenever I talk about courage now. But courage is, you do shit scared. Like the fear is never goes away. And there's always going to be the duality. And I think that what we do, and I know that there'll be women in your world that pedestal you thinking you're never afraid, that you constantly can just make moves and you never are rocked. That nothing, they like dehumanize you almost to think that you don't have any of the emotions or feelings that they have. And that's just not true. But the difference is, like you said, the more you make moves, the more you learn to trust yourself. Like I, from a very young age, was a risk taker. I've never been afraid to take risks. And, you know, sometimes that's gone left and sometimes it's gone right. And that's okay, because every time it has, I've always figured it out. I've always been able to be like, well, is there ever really a bad decision? Or was there like learnings that you needed from that experience? And for me, learning to trust yourself comes from being willing to take leaps, being willing to keep finding your edge, and being willing to follow the pull. Like I am just a huge believer that if you are pulled to something, whether it be the vision of your business, whether it be to start a business, whether it be fill in the blank, an investment that you might make, that is your soul telling you that's what you were meant to live out. And the human experience of fear will come up because it's just trying to keep you safe. Like I see you, I know what you're doing, but we're fine. Like, and I know I've got this, because I wouldn't be the pull. If the pull is always greater than the fear, then I follow the pull. Now, if you're just straight scared and the pull is like a little bit, but you're like, I don't know, then maybe that's not the right move. But you have the discernment to know the difference if you
100%.
trust yourself.
Yeah. And I always say too, it's like the wisdom and the actual lesson is only happens if you do it scared. And so people, and I know it's like easier said than done, but it's like so many people want to wait until I don't feel the fear, wait until the fear is not as strong. But it's like the actual power, like the transformation happens when you're like, I'm scared, but you talk yourself through it. I'm like, I trust myself no matter what. This, like, we need to step through courage and bravery to continue to expand. And this is just like growth over and over again. So I wanted to start there, because obviously courage and bravery is a thing in my world. And what you did is such a cool example to share. I would love to even just speak a little bit about, it's so interesting. And I know that we talked about this on our weekend a little bit of like, the ways that people can come into our world and work with us, right? It's like a free masterclass, a $99 masterclass, $1,000 program, a 50K mastermind, a whatever, a VIP weekend. And it's like, we talked a little bit about like the journey of where people start. And obviously that journey can look different. Like there's nothing wrong if someone needs to start with a masterclass and work your way up and whatever. And then there's some people like you are like, well, let's just start with a VIP weekend. And I just thought, it's so cool, because we often just assume people will start in the smallest thing, but your journey in my world was literally starting with like the biggest thing, like come be with me in a weekend. And we all joked in a sense, like right when we met, like good thing this wasn't a hot mess. And it was just like the kind of like, wow, like I'm so happy. Obviously it turned out the way that it did, but I feel like your decision to do this, and we had an amazing weekend together. I feel like the ripple of this and the story can be so huge, because it's like you can take bold action as the first thing, you can make a big move in someone's world as your first time being in their world. Like how did you feel like that's catapulted your journey in my world? And it hasn't even been that long. Like now we get to start from a weekend together, and that's the start of our journey. So I would love for you to just speak to that, of like the thought process, what it feels like, and maybe any wisdom that you want to share with someone listening.
I have like so much to say. And what I love about this is actually stuff that's happened in the last week that I don't even think Steph knows. So this is such a good conversation. So for me, what you said about like the fear and the pull, the duality in that and the dance around that, if you just make moves from comfort, it doesn't stretch you. It doesn't expand you. It doesn't, like, think about, and I hate always using the workout analogy, but it's always the best. It's like, if you go to the gym and you just do what's comfortable, it doesn't change anything. Nothing happens. Whereas if you go and you push yourself, it's in those moments of pushing yourself and finding your edge, of like really pushing through those weights, that the change happens physically. The same thing goes for your inside as goes for your outside. And I think that this is the big conversation for me. Like, that was the inevitable thing that was going to stretch me. And I felt, that's why I felt the pull. And I only make moves that I ultimately don't really want to make moves that feel comfortable, because they're probably not the right move. If it's comfortable, it's probably not going to do what I want it to do. And there's a big reason. And I have to admit, I'm going to say something really honest. I, for a long time in the coaching industry, kind of felt a little bit like people used to say stuff just to like make money, like the power of mentorship or finding your edge, and why doing it scared and making big investments is so powerful. There was a part of me that was a little bit like cynical around why people would share that message, until I got it. Until I was like, oh no, I get it now. And for me, those shifts, like the minute I made that investment with you, I shifted. And as a result, guess what happens? Everyone begins to respond to you differently. And it's happened to me in multiple occasions over my entrepreneurial journey, and ultimately over my life, but specifically in my business, around significant moments in time. And that for me was like this decision that I'm going to put myself in the room with her, because I am the type of woman who does that. And so guess what I get? I get women that then find me as I talk about making those moves. And as I then share my embodiment, that I'm not just talking the talk, I'm goddamn walking the walk. You bet your ass. If I'm talking about the power of investing in yourself, I'm doing those things. I'm not that person, and I'll never be that person. And as a result, the minute I did that, and I could show up in that different energy of like, I'm the type of woman that like just saw a story and put myself in the room with her, flew to Canada with a baby. It's very inconvenient. I'm still breastfeeding. Doesn't make any sense. And it's like, I'm the type of woman who, and then guess what? Again, I always say that it's none of my business when someone decides to pay me, but it was no coincidence that I was having women find me and pay me for all of my offers, like in a whole new level of potency, because I activated my next level of personal power and I was attracting amazing humans into my world, left, right, and center. Now, obviously then the weekend happened and we joked like, this is the start of everything. It was like that feeling where you said it and I was like, it's full, and I get chills now rethinking of that moment where you said that to me on the couch. I was like, you're right. And I'm going to be really honest. You don't even know that. You don't even know what I'm about to say. I went into that weekend where like, Leanne, you are not going to leave this weekend investing in something else. Like you're not going to leave and be like, I'm going to do the next thing. And of course, what came up for us was those conversations around what that looked like. And I ended up signing up for your mastermind, but it's no coincidence that the same week I got back, I actually invested like over $100,000 between you and a couple of other moves that I made. And guess what happened in February? In 11 days, I bought in over 6 figures in cash. 6 figures in cash in 11 days. And you don't even know that. I haven't even told you that because it's been so crazy. I haven't even like told you yet, but here we are talking about it.
Well, I just love this so much because, there's a big difference. And I love that you said too, it's like, for a while you would see people on the online space say like, just make moves. And you're like, yeah, whatever. Like, but it's as soon as you do it and you realize there's something here, that's the difference. And I think that a lot of people, this is kind of like a side conversation, will just say things like that, but they're not living it. But that's the difference. And so that's why you were like, I live it, I do it, I preach it. And that's why you then actually are attracting people who move like you, and they're making those moves in your world versus people being like, oh, I should just say that, but people can't actually feel your embodiment of that from you. And then it's like, there's always a disconnect. I actually have a piece of content I'm going to be sharing later today where it's similar to this of like, there's a difference between saying what to do from someone who's living it versus just saying what to do. And it's like, why would I listen to you? I don't see what you're doing. Like, what have you accomplished? And it doesn't mean like to talk down on someone, but it just means like, number one, it's like, are you completely living what you're saying? And in the coaching space, it just needs to be like this or else it doesn't land because people are hiring someone that they can feel the energy from. And so I think that it's a wake up call, and also the conversation to like not get complacent. It's like you could be doing something and being someone and saying it, but then if you stopped for whatever reason from fear, I think a lot of people reach success and they get scared, then there's going to be that disconnect of people can't feel it from you. And so this is just such a huge, I think, testimony to that. And also, the piece around you being like, oh, I'm not going to invest in anything after whatever, or like, even like you had no expectations for the weekend besides I'm going to go and have a good time and see what happens. And I think that that's why whatever played out from that weekend and after felt right and natural, whether you said to yourself, I was or wasn't going to do something, but also you came into the weekend being like, I'm no expectations. And that's why I think that it felt, as we felt connected the way that we did, is because we were both pretty chill, like, hey, let's just have a good time. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I think that there needs to be that kind of energy and confidence on both sides. And maybe you want to speak to that too, of what it felt like for you to decide to do something, but also not have crazy expectations at the same time, like that duality.
Yeah. And so like, there's so many things that you just said, because I know But I'm going to be honest, like from ego, like I'd started doing 6-figure months and I'm like, this is amazing. Like 6-figure months are a big deal. And I'm like, I had a baby last year and I did over $1 million in a year that made no sense to do it. And it was almost like I had this moment of like, I don't need to do anything. I don't need to be in a mastermind. I had this whole ego around not needing to be in a mastermind. We spoke about that. It's just like so funny to me now. Like I'm looking back on those conversations. And for me, it was like, I was able to see myself when I got home, like where I was like, well, it's enough, you know? And I even remember saying to you, like, maybe I'll just do this with you twice a year. As though like, that was like, you know, and I could feel my ego coming up around, you know, embodiment, but on my own terms. And it's like, well, why don't you want to do the mastermind? And actually the growth in me is about looking at what I don't want to do. I actually lean into like, well, maybe that's the thing that I should actually be doing. And that was the opportunity for me. So there's a few things, like it's no coincidence that when you walk the walk and talk the talk, that you attract like-minded humans. So the example that Steph gave of me finding her, watching a story, paying her 25K in full, the evidence that for all of you is that gets to work for you. That gets to happen to you too. So you don't have to think that people have to find you and follow you for a certain amount of time and then buy your lowest ticket thing. People are on the edge of their seat waiting to pay you if you are in integrity and a walking, talking embodiment of your work. And that is the biggest piece of the puzzle, because if you want to know the secret between Steph and other amazing women in this industry that are being successful, fill in the blank of any woman that you follow that's doing what you want. The reason why you're pulled to her, the reason why I was pulled to Steph is I felt it in her. It's like she is a walking, talking embodiment of her work. And when you meet her in person, and I had that fear, like, what if I meet her and she's not the same? Like I had that moment of like, oh my God. And then as soon as I saw her, I was like, you're the exact same human. And that's why we had an amazing weekend. But to go to your actual question, I learned a while ago to stop making moves from instant gratification, because they were always the moves that I regretted. And I was like, this was not what I thought it was going to be. And actually it was a really good opportunity for me to look inwards around, why am I constantly making moves from what do I get now? Like that is not a self-led woman moving from vision. And I am the type of woman who moves from vision, not from short-term instant gratification. And so for me, going into that weekend, everyone was like, what are you going to ask? What are you going to do? Like everyone asked me like, what are the plans? I was like, I have no idea. And I could care less. Like there was not 1 ounce of me that had any attachment to what we needed to do or needed to talk about, because again, I fully trusted, I know what I need. And for me, it was actually, and some people slam people for saying this in the coaching industry, but I'm going to keep it real. Being in proximity, literally in 3D human form with somebody that's doing what you want to do, and being the type of woman that you admire is enough. Like that was enough. And there were moments where I remember we were like joking, we were sat in silence and we were like, I love that this is already so chill that we can just like be in each other's energy. And it's like being with a friend or someone that you've known. And for me, that's what it was. And of course we had amazing conversations and amazing opportunities to go down different avenues. But the weekend was just about the weekend. It was about the move. And being that type of woman. And I'm also that kind of person that I knew I was going to get the most from like the in-person experience. But it also was about I had no attachment to, the same way with the mastermind and the weekend. It wasn't like, I'm going to give you 50K. How quickly will I make this back? Like, so, and I didn't have the attachment. And it's no coincidence to me that the money is coming thicker and faster in my world, again, because I'm not attached to it. It's like, it didn't happen because I didn't get back from that weekend like, now I need to make 100K in 11 days. It was like, no, I'm just going to make moves and do me. And my energy was just different. And everyone was like a magnet to me because of that.
And the detachment is the reason why it works, is because it's like, if you would have went in with crazy expectations or like a checklist or all those things, then we would have had that moment of silence, but it would have been awkward because you'd be like, let me pull out my list. Or
can you review my content for me, please? Yeah. Like that was not the vibe. Yeah.
And this is it. I think that this is just goes to show for any kind of investment that we need to go in with this energy of like, I'm doing this for a reason. I have something to learn here. I have something to get out of it. But when there's too far of an attachment, then it just sucks the life out of the entire experience. And then you can't actually lean back to be able to consume or integrate whatever is presented in front of you. And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with everything, whether it's a course, a program, a mastermind, an event, an in-person thing, is like, there's this need for like, what am I going to get out of it now? And I often joke, in my experience, like when I started my business, I literally thought that I wouldn't make money for 10 years, like literally. And I'm like, that's why I grew so quickly, is because I was convinced I was gonna not make money for so long. But at the same time, it's not being complacent of like, oh, I'm not gonna get anything. I'm gonna get stuff. But how and what, when, and what exactly it is, and when it will come up, like there's a release of that. And I think that's the most powerful thing. I want to switch gears a little bit. You did mention here that last year you had $1 million year, 7-figure year, which is amazing. Congratulations. This is absolutely insane. And I wanted you to be able to share with the audience here of maybe just sharing. You did mention that you have a baby and you have a family, and just sharing that dynamic of what that's felt for you as you're building your business. But if you even look back on your 7-figure year, are there a few things that you're like, you could see how it added up to that result that maybe you felt called to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things. So I started my coaching business in the beginning of 2020, and I'd been in corporate for 11 years, like coaching people, leading huge teams. So it wasn't my first rodeo with like, I obviously was a great coach in a very different capacity, but also similarity. And I was like marketing, I was sales, I was all the things that I now teach within my business. This shift was that I knew I wanted to work with women. And in 2020, it was the first year that I like had my business. And I really tried a lot of things that didn't work. I launched things that didn't work. I poured my heart and soul into things that didn't work. I did lives when not one person was watching. I showed up when nobody cared. And I actually just shared a piece of content around this, but in January of 2020, I was literally knocking on doors in my neighborhood, asking women to come to my goal setting event for women in my clubhouse in my neighborhood for $35 a ticket, like literally knocking on doors, because a week before one ticket had sold. And again, when you think about, are you the type of woman who would cancel the event and be like, oh, not doing that, or that will go and knock on doors? I was like, you all need to be there, because I'm going to change your life. I'm going to help you achieve your goals, right, in the next 90 days. So that's where it started for me. And I love, because I look back and I'm like, that makes so much sense. And so that first year, there was a lot of failure. There was a lot of, bad moves. There was a lot of launching things that didn't sell. There was a lot of self-discovery and a lot of clarity over what I did and did not want to do, who I did and did not want to work with. In 2021, I really honed in on creating my signature offer. And I really started to use my genius, which was launching, was doing live trainings. And I'm going to be honest, I did the same launch, like iterations of the same launch every single month for 12 to 18 months. I can't even remember the full time frame, but it was probably 16 months or so, where I literally did a 3-day launch. And around those launches, I kid you not, I offered every woman that came into my launch a 15-minute connection call with me, because my intention was to get to meet these women that were in my world and leave people in a better place than where they found me, where I found them. And so it was like this opportunity for gold. I met so many amazing human beings. I met women that never paid me, and they are still in my world, that have started to buy stuff now. Like, I just met incredible humans, and I really honed my craft. I understood how to market. I understood how to lead generate. I understood how to sell. I understood how to make a program that actually got people results. I understood so much more just by really getting hyper focused. And so in 2022, the problem was I was about to have a baby, and I was like, well, I can't do live launches every month with a tiny human and do like 70 calls in a week around that. And I also had outgrown that system. It had worked. And so I wanted to hold on to it, because I was like, it's still working. It was bringing in like 30 to 50K cash months, but I knew I had things on my heart that I wanted to do that were beyond where I was currently teaching. And I decided to let go of the monthly income goal. For a long time, I'd focused on, I want to do 50K this month. I want to do 30K this month. And so everything was about the next 30 days. And guess what? It kept me in a cycle of like the next 30 days. So I'd realized, now I know how to bring in money. My signature offer is amazing. Women are staying in my world, are getting great results. The money was there. So by the time I was having Lennox, it was in April, I knew that I knew how to make money, and it was time to lean into trust, get rid of all sales calls, get rid of the monthly live launch. And I basically asked myself two questions. What experiences do I want in my business? I want to get paid every day. I don't want to just make money 1 week of the month, which was what was kind of happening to me with the launch cycle. And I went through everything. I want to wake up to Stripe notifications. I don't care how much it's for. I just want to wake up to Stripe notifications. I want to be able to be with my baby and also be able to run my business in like 2 to 3 days a week. So I really laid out what experiences did I want? And then I said, well, who do I need to be? And then what do I need to do to create those experiences? So who do I need to become? I need to become the type of woman who believes that people can pay her without a sales call. I need to become the type of woman who's unapologetic and sells every day. Because guess what? If you want to get paid every day, you need to sell every day. Otherwise, people can't pay you. And I really understood, what do I need to believe? And I need to trust that I can earn the same. I wasn't even attached to a figure, but I was like, I can earn money and run my business in 2 to 3 days a week whilst being a mum with a new baby. And I've got a 5-year-old too. So I had Lennox, and I don't even think we spoke about this, but it was the first time I recorded a training and streamed it into my Facebook group. It happened to be the day I gave birth. And I was sat holding my baby after I delivered him at like 1:04 in the morning. That same day, people were watching my live training and sending me, and people were buying my program that I launched. And I remember saying to Justin, like, this is it. I've done it. I'm doing it. Like, I didn't do a live launch and people are paying me. And from there, it just really birthed this brand new era of my business and the brand new era of who I was, because I started to really step into that energy of being her now, like not waiting for the validation of like the millions to come. I was like, I'm going to be her now in my moments as a mother, in my workouts, in how I show up in the business. And I did things my way, fully my way. And within like 90 days of having Lennox, I think I had my first like 93K month and 105, 107, and the money just kept coming, and I was working less. And I was so much more potent, and I was so much more in my power. And it was from the decision it began and ended with the decision that it got to be possible.
I'm just so obsessed with all of this. I think that we all, you said, be her now. I can be her now. Everybody knows exactly what they can shift in this moment to create radical change and do things a different way. And it's literally from deciding, I'm going to be it now. Like, we all know the things that we can start doing or the things that we need to stop doing to step into the next level. And we know this, but it's easier said than done. And we're so waiting. Yeah. When I start making 6-figure months, then I will. When I have the $1 million business, then I will. When blah, 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 then all. Everything that will create a change comes from a decision of now. And it's almost like this full body of experience. I don't know if this is what it was like for you, but I felt this many times in my life where it's just, I'm done with the past, and there's no more waiting. There's no more going on this way. You just decide, like, it's an experience of like, I've shifted. And it's like so interesting, because I think oftentimes like people can't really tell that we've changed, but we can tell. The power is different. The frequency is different. I feel like that's exactly what happened to you. Is like, well, there's no other choice. I'm changing now. Boom, done. You made these changes and you knew exactly what you needed to change, and you just did it. And all of a sudden it worked. Plus all of a sudden now it's like better than it even was before when it was working. So it's just like, again, it's similar to what we were talking at the beginning, this trust piece of, can I trust myself to be her now? Can I trust myself to step into that version now? We all know, no matter where we're at, the things we need to start doing to get to where we are, but it's like, can you let yourself become it? And it feels like you were just in a place where it's like, I'm having a baby. Life is now. Business, I'm literally having a baby. So like, it needs to change now. And here you are, 6-figure month, 7-figure year, all these different things, a beautiful family. You have like an incredible brand of business, all these different things from so many of these decisions, courageous decisions, but decisions of like, I'm just not going to wait anymore.
And I will say, one of the things that really helped me, and I've shared this before, and I think it makes some people feel uncomfortable, because there was a lot of people in my world, particularly in my audience, that knew I was having a baby. And I will admit this, I almost was not vocal about the fact I was pregnant. A lot of my stuff is like this. Very few people even like really knew that I was having a baby, because I was like, I'm not giving people a reason to not work with me. Like that, I am just going to keep showing up. And when I had the baby and I started posting with the baby, people were like, you had a baby, you were pregnant? Like, where did you get a baby from? But a lot of people that were in my world and did obviously know I was pregnant kept telling me, don't worry, your business will still be there. It's okay if your income drops. Don't try and do it all. Make sure you spend time with your baby. And again, from the best of intentions, people are always trying to look out for us. They see a high achieving woman. They're like, don't miss out on being with your baby. And inevitably in who I am the type of woman who, if you tell me I can't, I will. And not just for me, but for her, because I'm like, it's not just me that's having that experience of being told that. And the whole point, in actually for me, a big reason why I left corporate was because I had my son Bo and I was away all the time working like 70-hour work weeks. And I was like, this is ridiculous. And I felt like it was the choice between a great salary and being a good mom. And I was like, I call bullshit. Like, I'm going to create the life that I desire. And I'm not going to just do it for me, but I'm going to show other women what's possible. And so it was a bigger decision than just me. It was like, this is the whole point. This is why I want to work with women, because you can have it all. You don't always have to compromise, and stop receiving everybody else's projections of what's possible and then creating your reality based on other people's experiences. Like, screw that. No, I was like, not happening. And so that was for me a really strong, again, that pull into like, why does everyone keep saying that to me? It was almost like insulting to me that the implication was that I could have my success or that I could be a good mom. I was like, watch me do both. Like, watch me do both.
It's so crazy how other people's stories can absolutely shape our experience and what we believe. Because imagine if you're like, oh, like, thanks. And then you were like, fell into that story, and then you wouldn't have been able to have the success, but you were like, you recognize that right away. Like, that's her projection. That's her story that now she's putting onto me, and God knows how many other people, and nothing against that person because she got that story from whatever. It's just how things happen. And I think this piece, I talk about self-awareness all the time. This self-awareness piece of like being able to hear people's point of views or criticism or this or that and be like, oh, okay, thanks. But also, what do I think about this? What is my reality about this? Do I believe this? Should I listen to this? Or what is my story going to be? And you literally took that and you flipped the script and you're like, I'm like, watch me do it this way. But not only watch me do it, but watch me do it and watch me thrive in both areas. Like, watch me have all the time with my children. Watch me, create a 3-day work week. Watch me get the success and growing success and still have the other side. And I think people struggle. It's like you were saying, it's one or the other, but like, who decided it has to be one or the other? And I think it's like, just if right now it makes me so excited, someone listens to this and listens to you say this, and someone might have the story of like, when I have another child or when I have my family, it's going to be hard, but it's like, there's a way to do it. And you're evidence of that.
Yeah. And that was the biggest thing for me, is like, that's when I really fully began to share myself. And it's funny because remember how you said it, sometimes people don't know. Everybody felt the difference in me, to the point where people were like, who did you hire? Like, what content writer did you hire? And I was like, no, that's actually just me saying what I actually want to say. And it was like the universe gave me that like line in the sand, because Lennox was coming. And I can't honestly answer how much longer I would have held on to that system if I hadn't have had like a actual like, okay, I'm going to take away, it's almost like I'm going to take that away from you because you need to learn. And I think this is part of the work, is like, to your point, the ability to be able to hear other people and like acknowledge that. And like, that's their perspective and their opinion. And I actually don't need everyone to agree with me. Like, I'm good with that. I'm fine. But I also don't need to absorb everybody else's, like, their stories, their feelings. What mattered to me was I did things my way. And I continue to ask myself that, even being in Steph's world and like being in her masterminds, being with her in person, I can like see in her where she's doing things her way. And I'm like, but that's just permission for me to keep doing things my way. I don't have to do them Steph's way. I don't have to do exactly what Steph's doing to make the same amount of money, or actually, my superpower is in me being more of me. And that's what being around you was like the biggest takeaway, was like two really big things, was that I had this moment of like, I feel like I belong here. And I was able to recognize the growth in myself as somebody that for a long time did not feel that way and had very low self-worth. So if you're watching this now, you're meeting me where I'm at after a lot of work. So please like know that this version of me did not exist like even 5 years ago. I wasn't this woman. So the work was reflected back to me when I was in the room with you and Cassie, and I was like, I feel like I belong here. And that was like a real moment for me of like, again, I get goosebumps where I was like, I belong here. I belong here. And I cannot believe I even can think that or feel that. And that was such a big thing. But it was also seeing, and it was just funny how Cassie happened to be there, but seeing both of you and how different you are, but how you are, was that full body permission to be like, that's why it's working. Keep doing more of that.
I love this because this is just another, we'll call it a code, right? Where I think people get it confused of like, if I'm hiring someone, then I have to do it their way or do it exactly, or do things exactly that they're saying. But to me, the point of coaching and mentorship is like, yes, some things might apply, but it's more about the person and the discernment and like the embodiment and the soft skills. It's like the confidence, the boldness, the consistency. Like, yes, those are all things that I think at the level of mentorship, it's more about that. But then it's like how you apply it to your life and your business. You get to do it your way and still get the same result. And I think people struggle with that, again, across the board of different ways we consume and learn from coaches. Cause then it's like, I think I need to do it exactly how she is. That's not the way that aligns. And then you get frustrated. It either works and you get frustrated because you hate it, or it doesn't work because it's not your way. And I think like we have to remember this with mentorship. It's, you don't hire a mentor to become them or do it exactly their way. You hire them to learn what I like. The way that I see it now is the soft skills. And then it's like learn the soft skills you can apply your way to your business, to your lifestyle. And that's when the transformation happens. But we have to get to a certain point of, like you were saying, you went through your own growth to be able to stand in your power and your confidence to come to a space and be like, I belong here, right? You wouldn't have felt that years ago when you haven't done your own work. And again, too, there might be times where people find themselves in a space where it's like, I don't have the confidence to be able to get the information and the codes or the mentoring or whatever. And I think that this happens and we can't always control it, but that's a lesson in and of itself of like, oh, I need to keep doing some work for me behind the scenes to get to that, what I call the power meets power kind of energy. And again, I just love this conversation so much because like especially in masterminds, one-to-one days, one-to-one mentorship or whatever, it becomes a different situation when the client is in their power and the coach is in their power. Versus 100%. Like, I need to be you and I need to learn what, like, that's like, right. But it takes work to get there on both ends. But so for everyone watching too, like Leanne's time for our weekend and beyond in masterminds in different containers, this is literally power meets power. She's in her power. She knows who she is, what she wants. She knows her lifestyle. She knows her business, and she's learning certain things from me. It's not like, oh, what did Steph say? I need to exactly, right? But it takes a certain level of maturity and confidence and experience to get there. And that's a journey. But mentorship changes when it's at this level because you're really going beyond what is already amazing. Like Leanne said, I don't need it. Like, but obviously the ego situation is another one, but it's like, it's not from need. It's not from a missing something. It's not from that. It's from, I'm solid within myself and I can sit in this room and feel like I belong here and still learn.
And I also think that I want to also admit that there is a piece there around, do you know how you get to learn to have the feeling that you belong in the room is put yourself in rooms that you actually don't feel you belong in. Like, is again, speaking to courage, the first thing I invested in was a $30,000 mastermind. And it was like at the very beginning of my coaching business. I didn't even know what an email, like how to even build an email list. And I remember being in the room with women being like, I'm going to do 100K this launch. And I've done a 50K month this month, and being like, what? Like what? And I didn't feel like I belonged in the room, but guess what? I didn't lean out. I leant in and I looked at interesting. Like, I wasn't judgy on myself. I wasn't shameful. I wasn't like, oh my God, you're the worst, so you're never going to fit in here. I was like, interesting, there's work to do. Let's do the work. Like that was it. It's like, let's do the work. Let's look at what needs strengthening here. And it's, you don't, none of us are just like come out the gate. I didn't just come out the gate, like knowing what I was doing or feeling like I belonged. And it's okay if you don't currently feel that way. And I'm sure I could find rooms now that I still would have those moments of like, oof, like, do I belong here? And I had my human moments when I was around you and Cassie and stuff, where I was like, I had that very human, oh, like, do you want me in a picture, or you guys want to take a picture? Like, it was like, I had a very like moment of that where I was like, no, it's fine. Like, you can still be a human being. There is always going to be that duality around it. And I think like sometimes we pedestal people and think they don't have any of that. They do. Steph does. I do. Like, everybody has their human moments, but it's how you're able to lead yourself through it. And the shift in me was that realization of coming to your weekend and being like, well, I don't need it. But just because you don't need it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. It's like, do you not need it? Do you not need it? Do you want to continue to grow? Like, do you want a first-hand seat to the way somebody else is like continuing to expand and evolve, and like take from that what you need and be like, oh, interesting. Like, where do I need to take a look at that? Like, there is so many amazing conversations that we had and continue to have that literally have nothing to do with strategy or like, how do I grow my email list, or like any of those things that I would have needed to ask 2 years ago. But that is the discernment to know what you need where you're at, whilst also to put yourself in places that you actually don't feel that you belong until you know that you belong there.
I love this so much too, because you know, even people in my mastermind, it's interesting. Our clients that you would think are like a higher level and they have a certain level of success that they're like, oh, they feel like they belong everywhere. No, they'll come into a space and have the same thing. So it's like, if you're at the beginning of your journey or whatever, like Leanne is saying, there's people who you would think don't feel that way, absolutely feel that way. So there's that, but also to Leanne's point around like not needing something or not feeling like you need to be in something, lean in because there's something more. And I think that a lot of people miss out on growth, expansion, conversations, wisdom, so many things because they're like, oh, I'm good. But it's like, just be curious where your mind goes of like, oh, I don't need that. Ask yourself, like, why did that thought happen so quickly? And I didn't even question it. Like, what if you just were curious about that? You might end up in programs, trainings, masterminds, who knows what, anything that is like the thing that you're like, oh my God, I totally needed that. But we don't have that experience unless we have the courage and the self-awareness to be like, where am I just stopping myself? Where am I stopping myself? And so many people who are successful stop themselves from growing because they're like, I don't need. And it's just to like, be curious and lean in. There's a whole other conversation that's available to you. So this is so freaking good. This is just this whole conversation and everything. And I mean, I'm not shocked. I knew that this conversation was going to be amazing. So thank you for coming on and having this discussion. I know that it's going to be so helpful for the people who are on live and people who will listen to this conversation, just about the courage. I think at the end of the day, it's like, you're someone who is like, I want to live an exciting life and I want to make moves that excite me. And your whole vibe of this year is like experiences, which is incredible. But I think the underlying theme is courage, self-awareness, and continual expansion. And that is applicable for people no matter where they are at in their journey. And that is clearly the thing that allows us, in my opinion, to create something that's so fulfilling and successful. You know what I mean? Like this whole story, this whole example, not just the story of you and the weekend, but like your whole journey of like how you built your business. This is courage. This is courage on steroids. This is just deciding I'm going to do it, and you do it, and you create results. Like, there's just so much power in the power of decision and deciding, but not needing to know how or what. Like, just decide and go, and you create something that's phenomenal and something that is fulfilling. You know, I think we all have a wild side to us. Like, I'm like, yeah, let's go do something crazy. Like, there's something about that it's like, I don't care if I suck. I just want to go do it. Like, I don't care if it doesn't work. I want to be someone who does it. And I feel that in you. And I'm just so grateful that you found me. We did the weekend, and here we are. It gets to be the beginning of a journey, and just the success that you've created in your entire business, in your entire life, but also just from saying yes to yourself over and over again and living on that edge. So thank you for being here, Leanne. I love you. And now everyone who hasn't connected with you they've fallen in love with you. They're going to go connect. So maybe do you want to share Instagram quickly, or the few
Yeah,
places?
yeah. You can find me at the Leanne Lopez Mosley on Instagram. So yeah, just at the Leanne Lopez Mosley, LOPEZMOSLEY.
So good. So you guys who are here live, I'll come in the Facebook and go see how the chat was after. Thank you guys for being here. I'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, Friday, 10 a.m. I'm sending everyone so much love. Have a fabulous weekend, and I'll see you in all the spaces that we are connected. Bye, guys.